I'm going to create a simple 2D face rig, one that will allow us to swap face styles during animation. Open your drawing software of choice and create a new image with whatever resolution you want. Just make sure that the height and the width are the same number. I'll explain way later why you need to do this. I already have these faces rendered already, but if you're starting to sketch these out, then you'll need to keep these 3 points in mind. Draw your faces on different layers, draw them overlaying each other, and maintain a decent margin between the face and the canvas border. Follow those points and you should be good to continue. Let's think about how to create our sprite sheet using these faces. Since I plan on making this texture be the same sprite used for the characters in-game model, I'll stick with conventional resolutions. I like aiming for 1024 pixels or 2048 pixels in dimension. 4K is also an option, but only if you're convinced that you deem the extra detail to be necessary. The sprite sheet method is very common in games, but bear in mind that I won't go into detail for making them work inside a game engine. I'll only discuss the implementation inside Blender only. You'll have to figure that out on your own. Alright, the division. If you have 4 faces, you could divide your canvas 2 by 2. If you have more than that, divide it by 4. So on and so forth. Just make sure it's even. I have 4 faces, so I'll go with 1024 pixels, which means that each face will be 256 pixels in size. This should be enough, for my case at least. It can be tricky to place these faces manually onto the canvas, so I'll show you how I do them inside of Krita. Open a new canvas, this time with the resolution you have in mind. Import your drawings here. You'll want to move each face to the respective tiles of your canvas based on your chosen divisions. I like turning on the grid system and the snapping tool for this. It makes positioning them more easier. Here's a Docker, by the way. Select all of your drawings and scale them down uniformly until they can fit into the first tile of your grid. Now select a different face layer and proceed to square select the first tile on your grid. As for positioning them, I just zoom into the face and make sure that the selection fits on the respective tile. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, turn on transparency and export as PNG. Coolio. I'm gonna implement this face into this already rigged character, but this should still apply to any character you make. Select the head, go to edit mode, select the front faces you want to use as texture, duplicate them and move them slightly forward from the head. Now right click and choose separate the selection to make it its own object. Now go to the shading tab, remove any of its previously assigned materials and give it a new material. This will be the material that will house your new face texture. Now give it the sprite sheet you created earlier and connect it to the base color and alpha inputs respectively. Oh, it looks ugly. Go to the UV tab and switch from solid view to material view. Now adjust the UV so that it looks properly in your view. Don't worry about messing up here, you can always adjust the UV maps at any time. Go back to shading tab, we're gonna add 2 nodes here, texture coordinate and vector mapping. We connect this UV output socket to the vector input socket, which then connects to the image input socket. Take a look at these 2 values in the vector mapping node. This is how we control the X and Y coordinates that modify the position of the UV unwrapped I've done earlier, essentially letting me swap faces in the sprite sheet. Check this X value out. No matter what the ratio or resolution of original texture is, the X coordinates interval goes from 0 to 1. Same goes for Y's interval. You can see here that the texture forever repeats itself after traveling beyond the value of 1, but that's because inside the image section node, its extrapolation is set to repeat by default. If it was set to something like clip, you would only see empty space. But I'm digressing here, let's move on. So for 2 by 2 tiles, the first face tile will be here, the second tile will be here, the third will be here, and the fourth will be on here. If you have a sprite sheet that's 4 by 4, then your values will be laid out like this, from top left to bottom right. Remember back in the beginning that I mentioned that you should make this a 1-to-1 ratio? There are plenty of reasons out there and this is one of them. It makes it less chaotic to calculate the coordinate points that displays each face on the sprite sheet. It is doable to work with other ratios, just be ready to face other ratios that I'm not gonna teach you here. I'd be with my homeboy. Our plan here is to insert 2 drivers into an armature bone. We'll configure our bone's X and Y location values to drive the X and Y coordinate values of the UV map. Add a new bone to the rig, uncheck the deform option if you can, and parent the bone to the root of your character. Now go back to the vector mapping node. Right click the X property and select add driver. Now open the driver editor to view the driver that you just added. This is where you'll see all of your active drivers. If you don't see your driver, then make sure you have the vector mapping node selected in the shader tree. With the X driver selected, we'll adjust some settings in the driver section here. Set the object to your rig, the bone to your face control bone, the variable type to X location, and the space to local space. You'll notice these 2 coordinate points that you can adjust here. When doing so, keep the following points in mind. The horizontal axis is the driver value, which is your bone's X location, while the vertical axis is the final output value, which is your mapping's X location. I want my bone to switch faces when I change the bone's X location to a quarter meter. Since the second face's X coordinate value is at 0.5, I'll change this coordinate point to a driver value of 0.25 and a final output of 0.5. I recommend making the driver value something small if you don't want to move the phone far away to change just one face. I'm gonna go with what I did here, but I encourage you to experiment and do whatever you want here. Great, we got the horizontal faces working. Alright, the vertical faces. Copy the driver and paste it to the Y property of the mapping node and set the type to the Y location. You're pretty much finished here. Now select all of your points in the graph and set the interpolation to constant. Now you'll have an easier time animating the faces. If I want this bone to match the position of the sprite sheet side by side, then I need to fix this Y mapping value. I'm gonna hide this X driver real quick. Let's see, oh, I see. The driver was only responding to the bone's positive value. Let me adjust these points here and... Hi. Shout out to Lavender, Desolate, and Pipada's owner for making this video possible. And shout out to you if you actually got something out of this video. Also shout out to people that record for long hours because Jesus Christ, how can you fucking do this?